The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Vitruvian Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Spencer Fried. Spencer is a men's health advocate, fitness trainer, mindset coach, and master of transformations. Spencer is someone who has a deep passion for his work and the men that he works with, and I'm excited for our conversation today. Spencer, welcome to the show, brother.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
It is awesome to have you, and we're both smiling right now because we've had a cheeky bit of banter before we started recording, so it's unfortunate that people are going to miss out on that. It's honestly run the gambit already. So it'll be interesting to start our conversation today. But as we had kind of been discussing, and I'm certainly curious about because I haven't actually gotten this piece from you quite yet, I like to open these things up with letting myself and the audience get to know you through a little bit of the origin story. I think that people in general, certainly men on their life's journey, come to the world of, I call it self-mastery, but self-actualization, self-development, whatever. And typically there's some sort of event, person, mentor, book, kind of an inflection point, something that brings that level of awareness up. And there's that recognition that I'm meant for something more, I'm capable of something more. So open-ended, but I'd like to hear a little bit about your story and path to self-development to the man that is sitting before me today.
Very well said, man. And I have to say, like, I like that you begin with this in terms of the origin story, because it is really important. Now I'm thinking, like, in my head, like, where do I start here? Because it really started like when I was around 15, 16. And like you said, suffering is the beginning of these things. And that's where I was 15, 16. I wouldn't say I had a generic normal adolescence and early 20s. On the surface, I did, but internally, I was not happy. And that started around 15, 16. For whatever reason, me and you were talking about the father relationship and the mother relationship. And like we said, we'll definitely circle around on that. But in terms of my origin story, I was lost from 18 to 25. And I think I'm glad that we're talking about this, because there's probably so many men out there who are like, I need to find my shit at 18, 19, 20. And you really don't, because at the end of the day, there's so much social media and, people living their amazing lives, quote unquote, but everybody is in a specific journey. And so I didn't realize it at the time, but I was on a path to where I'm at now. And that started with depression. It started with anxiety. It started with OCD. It started with just a lot of turmoil inside of my own head, inside my own body. I had no idea who to turn to. Like we talked about, I didn't have a strong father at the time. I didn't have a masculine figure to be like, hey, I need help with this. I had a mother in my life, but again, things were complicated. So long story short, I was really alone in that aspect. And what I did was I turned to drugs and alcohol. Like, alcohol was big. First time I took a sip of it, bro, I was like, this is amazing. Holy shit. I don't feel insecure right now. I don't have the crazy thoughts. And right when I took that first sip, I pretty much knew it was going to be an issue. And that was the theme for around almost a decade. And so using these substances, I was able to kick the can down the road, which was my self-improvement. The real shit that I needed to deal with was that can. And I kept pushing it and drowning it in alcohol and Adderall and all this stuff. And I went to college, studied public relations. Don't remember anything from that time, dude, because I was just drinking and just not in a good spot. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, which I'm sure a lot of men relate with. And that was so distressing at the time. I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck to do. I don't know who I am because I've been drinking for so long. So that's kind of the backstory. It gives you context in terms of like the whole life situation. But fast forward, the origin was COVID. Can I say that on here?
Go for it, dude. I don't think
Hell
we're
yeah.
big enough to get deplatformed. And last podcast, Vance already talked about the jab, so I think I'm fucked either way.
Okay. All right, sweet. Dude, you might as well just own it. It's the base podcast. We're fine.
Honestly.
So yeah, the COVID hit, and I was in my mom's basement, 25 years old. That was rock bottom of my life. Drinking every day, dude, like a bottle to the face. I was taking Adderall. I was in the worst period of my life. And I can almost like cry thinking about it, because thinking about that man back then, totally different than where I'm at now. But I had to experience being that man at the time in order to become the man that I am now. And so he was down bad. And I don't believe there was one moment. I would be lying if I remember like one moment I got up, but it almost feels like that. Like it was probably just a series of days, but I'm like, something needs to change, dude, because this is not working. My body is in the worst shape of my life. I'm drinking, I'm taking Adderall, I'm in my mom's basement. I got fired from my job, and I needed to change my life. So I looked in the mirror. I guess I do remember this point. I looked in the mirror. I'm like, I need to make a change. So I started doing Greg O'Gallagher. You know Greg O'Gallagher?
Yeah, Kino body, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. Shout out Greg. But yeah, so started doing his program, and he got me, his program got me into all this. Started doing him, started listening to people like Greg Plitt, and really just committed to it, bro. I started going to the gym, and I started really going hard because I quit alcohol. I'm like, I can't be drinking anymore. And whenever I wanted to drink, I worked out. I never went to one AA meeting. It was just working out, dude. Every time I wanted to drink, I worked out. And that's all I fucking did for a year. It was COVID. Everybody was drinking or eating a lot and just, not living their highest life. I'm like, this is the perfect time actually to hunker down and build something. And I started getting addicted to the gym. And I remember this point, dude. I remember the point I got addicted to the gym, because I was working out for maybe 4 weeks. I did like a Greg Plitt 28-day challenge. And I came home and I looked in the mirror and I'm like, dude, holy shit. Like I see results. My body's changing and I feel better about myself. I'm like, you know what? Like I want to keep this going. I got addicted to seeing that. So I started going twice a day consistently, like not skipping one, because I knew that if I skip one, I would lose out on this amazing opportunity to build. And that just slowly compounded. Alcohol was cut out of my life. I decided never to touch that again. And I'm approaching 3 years in September, which I feel so fucking great about, dude.
Congrats, bro.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. And Adderall took around 2 years to get off of that, but the gym was the foundation, and it still is to this day. And that's what I preach to people, because that got me out of my rut. And so through this transformation, I transformed my whole body, my whole physique, and my entire life changed. My depression was virtually gone. Like we all go up and down sometimes, but I'm able to deal with it now when it comes, because I'm a stronger person. Depression, anxiety, all that shit was just so much smaller because I was fucking bigger. And then I realized, I'm like, holy shit, this is my purpose. And so the purpose kind of came accidentally. And that's the wisdom that I got in my own life. And I'm so grateful. Sorry, I'm cursing so much, dude.
Go for it. I don't care. I curse like a sailor.
So I'm so grateful that this occurred, because I'm so grateful that I discovered the wisdom of that somebody's purpose can happen as you go through life and as you suffer and deal with stuff. So now I'm on a mission to help as many men with this. my favorite type of client to work with is somebody who comes to me and is a similar situation, who's drinking or just down bad. And I'm like, dude, the gym is where you can and will change everything. It's exactly how I did for me. And so this almost feels, I know me and you spoke about this a lot in our conversation. We're both have this fire within us of what we want to achieve or what we want to do in the world. And it's truly like, it feels like it's coming from the solar plexus to help people. And of course, build a business. There's nothing wrong with that. Build a business and help as many people as possible. That's connected. But that's the mission. And it's very clear, transform 1 million men through this. So as bad as that suffering was, I'm grateful for it now. And that's my origin story.
Very well said. So much to go into, but I can definitely say that I empathize heavily with the path to self-mastery starting through physicality. And I was actually thinking about it today when I was walking around, thinking about this podcast in advance, and honestly just kind of contemplating. And it's a pillar, it's a through line of the work that I do. Like it is non-negotiable as a man, in my opinion, to discipline your body rigorously. But I honestly, I don't know that there is a better entry point, because it is extremely hard, if not impossible, to think yourself into a better state. But all of the exercises that we are familiar with, like breath work, etc., they're all somatic to calm the mind, right? Like you're choosing something intentionally with your body, whether it's a stillness meditation, a breathwork exercise, etc. And very much the same way, like it is very hard to have intrusive thoughts when you're sitting under 400 pounds of a barbell, or you're just doing hill sprints and you're breathing as hard as you ever have. And so I think that the physical endeavor is very hard to overlook, and I think it's extremely fundamental, and it really does answer a lot of those interesting insecurities. And what's funny is that it can sometimes take a backswing, and it's something I want to talk to you about with like things like orthorexia and being over fixated. And then once you start to see the results, then you're like, you even kind of alluded to it, like, I don't want to miss out on the gym. And then it's almost like antagonistic. So I'm curious your relationship with that across the transformation. But further back, where do you think a lot of those deeper intrinsic issues were coming from when you were that like 15, 16-year-old kid?
Dude, such a beautiful question. And it's honestly something that I'm still learning about in my life. However, what I will say is, because I tried so many modalities, dude, therapy, like Western therapy, I tried ignoring it. I tried medication, pharmaceuticals. A lot of that shit didn't work, or a lot of that stuff was just temporary. To be honest, what really has helped me overall with psychedelics, working out, and just changing the lifestyle. But I'm like in therapy, dude, I'm sure there was things that occurred like in my childhood as a kid that created some sort of anxiety, because and it happens now, bro. Like my mind tends to be fearful. It just tends to worry and overthink and all this stuff. And when I was 16 or younger, that used to overtake me, because I didn't have, and I'm not blaming it on anybody, but my theory is like, maybe I didn't have somebody like a rock solid figure to be like, it's okay, bro. Like, it's fine. Like, chill. I didn't have that. So I felt very insecure. But now through meditation, and I think we talked about that, is so key. That's probably been one of the amazing things too, changing the relationship with my mind, because I healed a lot of the things emotionally that were causing the thoughts. But at the end of the day, the mind is just the mind. It could be a monkey mind. It could be thinking about all this stuff. So I'm grateful for that suffering as well, because this is how I help people too. We are not our minds. We are not our thoughts. These things are not even about us. And that discovery I wouldn't have made if everything was just happy and beautiful. I might just be working a 9 to 5 at a bank right now, dude.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's crazy crazy synchronicity because I wrote a post about it literally either today or yesterday about you are not your thoughts. And I think it's extremely fundamental. And then even when I was talking with Vance on the podcast just 2 days ago, we discussed kind of the similar phenomena or experience and coming to that realization, because without that awareness, people become extremely identified with how they are feeling. Like when you are mad, it is I'm mad, and it is just we are frustrated, and that is the experience, and you get wrapped up in the emotion and the circumstance that caused it, or sad or depressed or anxious. But all of those things are literally just passing through your consciousness, and if you can pause and observe them literally sometimes for 90 seconds or less, they will pass through you. And even just the non-identification, just being able to look at it and say, like, I feel this way. Maybe why? Like, what are some of the things that led me to feel this way right now? Was it somebody that something just said, or did something not go my way just now? How was I potentially responsible? How was I not responsible? Just putting that gap between you and the emotional experiences, it really does kind of change everything. And it feels like you're kind of sitting on a key or sitting on some like sort of magic formula, because when you see people that aren't that way, I just reread for the third time this year. I try to do it 4 times a year. I reread the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, because it's just so, I don't know that I found a 150-page book more powerful. And he talks about how and this is close to my working thesis right now on kind of the nature of reality and everything, but heaven and hell is for us to choose here on earth. They are states of mind. And when you see people who continue to identify in the moment with the emotions, and they're just victims of circumstance constantly. Oh, boss came in and gave me a bunch of work today. Like today is now a shitty day as determined by somebody other than me, or I got cut off in traffic, or I didn't get to work out because the gym closed and I didn't know about it. And now I'm pissed. Or, I came home and my spouse was spouting off about what happened in their day. And then like now I am just, this is a shitty night, and it is because of something out of my control. That is hell. That is the description of hell, using different words in all of the ancient texts, but choosing to live in heaven and non-identify with your experience, and choosing to step into joy and assign that meaning and almost like alchemize every experience towards a positive one is the ability to step into heaven. So extremely fundamental.
That was really good, man. I mean, I agree with you for sure. I mean, I think like what you're touching upon is we are the creators of a reality, and I'm sure we are so aligned on this on both of our missions. But the emotion of victimhood, with whatever reason, with the job or anything else, is destructive. But those people are choosing that hell, perhaps unconsciously or perhaps consciously. But at the end of the day, there's no self-love, because if there was, they'd be like, what am I doing? And the other thing I think that is really powerful is using that in some way, like using the hell in some way of being like, I feel angry and I feel depressed. I'm not going to revel in this. I'm going to transmute it. Have you ever read the book, The Alchemist?
Yes, I reread that 2 or 3 days ago, because I'm preparing, obviously I told you, for the trip to Bali. So I wanted to kind of hear it a bit of an adventurer story, but literally another synchronicity there.
Well, dude, first of all, congratulations on making that move.
Thank you.
I know we talked about that. It's awesome, man. Yeah, I've never read it, but I've heard great things about it. And in terms of, which I have to, but the concept of it makes a lot of sense, right? Because you have these substances, hell, heaven, etc., and you can use that pain to go forth and lift weights, because the weights, I think, represent something else in a lot of ways. And that's why I tell my clients is like, you're lifting resistance. And at the end of the day, this resistance could be anything. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be in life, but there's no separation between us and life. And if we find like that we're fighting life, things become really bad, like really quickly, because that doesn't work. So there's ways that you can use it into your life, if that makes sense,
Definitely. And I think life is the story of alchemization. Like there is no, like you said, because there is not necessarily a separation from our perception of our experiences and the experiences themselves. Your life is entirely identified by how you perceive them, meaning you get the choice. And I did a podcast a while ago. I think it might have been like 8 or 9 or something about choosing or how to reframe and like the concept of reframing and like essentially choosing the lenses through which you see your reality. And that is alchemy. Like the concept of alchemy originating, the word for those not familiar, is like the alchemists were obsessed with turning dull substances into gold. But it was more than that. It was also this kind of spiritual experience, a lot of like esoteric stuff that we don't have to go into, but it is extremely apt analogy for life, because you are not going to get to choose all of the things that are brought into that frame of perception. And what that means is the only thing that you are left with is how you perceive them and then what you do with them, like you said. So yeah, when we face this resistance, I had a phrase on a previous podcast that I said and I ended up liking, which is resistance is confirmation. And it's about when you're seeking or finding that you're coming closer to in life, getting aligned with your purpose, and stepping into maybe a new identity for yourself, the things that you are resistant towards, some of those insecurities, some of those pains, the doubt of others, whatever comes into that frame as the form of resistance is the confirmation that you're taking the right steps. And, the gym obviously is the consummate analogy for that, because the answer to what you want, which is, a better physique, stronger, fitter, etc., is only gotten through literally resistance training. It's kind of I know that amongst like non-gym goers, and I imagine most of the people that listen to this train, but I definitely think like it can be very annoying to hear the gym bros be like, the gym is life, it's a metaphor. But I do think that it is. I mean, it's very much like an as above, so below kind of a fractal of reality. Like everything that you could need as a tool for life can be found in the gym. And very much often, we're two speaking and living examples of people that found a lot of meaning and started that kind of journey into a lot of this deeper stuff. But it was very much a simple pursuit at the beginning. Like I was just an insecure kid that wanted to have abs and stop being like chubby and like be afraid to take his shirt off when he was in the locker room with other kids playing sports. Like, and it became so unbelievably transcendent because there is something extremely powerful about just the physique, like walking into a room, not only like what it commands from other people, like the signaling and all that stuff, but how you view yourself, the confidence to walk in with like your chest up and you're not wearing baggy clothes because you don't like how you look, or you're trying to, sit and feel small and be in the corner of the room. But like that confidence, that kind of presence is so transcendent. And it like you literally speak differently. You stare into people's eyes differently. I don't know. I was reflecting on it on my walk earlier today, and I was thinking about like the simplest way or like the fastest way to get somebody to levels where they're starting to like really ponder self-actualization and dive deeply into philosophy. But I really do think you have to start with the physical. Like if you instead of recommending like a very esoteric philosophy book, I would just say like train for something hard. Like if you hate running, run a marathon in a month. You really don't like going to the gym, like set a goal to bench 225 pounds and spend the next 6 months trying to get there. Like that kind of stuff, you will find so many answers within yourself just by picking those very physical goals.
You're invigorating me, bro. Or like you're like inspiring me, because you said a line where you said like the physical can literally be transcendent. And it's like the way that you said that was beautiful, because that is what it is. And that's how I feel as well, is like, it's not just the outside appearance, which we have to get into too, because there's so much value in that, especially for a male to be able to do that. But the transcendence that provides somebody, it's spiritual. And I think like it was almost a spiritual experience for me, dude. Like working out and rising above all the hell, because that's literally what it was, rising above that and being able to now be in the privileged position and the honor to help people and to help other men be able to do the same thing. Because I thought, oh, you just go to the gym, you get abs, you're able to attract more women, you feel better about yourself. It's great. No, there's so much more to it, dude. It's like, no, you literally can change your life. It's like the side effect is the body. The side effect is the happiness. The work is there, the avenue is there. It's just discipline. And then the physical, though, is another aspect as well, because when a man walks into a room and he has that, the symmetry and like the abs, at least that's where my mind goes to, because aesthetics is like the whole thing that I love, and I'm
For
sure you
sure.
relate to Greek culture and stuff. I think it's because it's natural. I think it's the bodybuilding community. It's amazing what Schwarzenegger has done, but I think it's gone a little bit too far in terms of, obviously we see that all the time with people passing away way too young. Joe Aesthetics passed away like really recently.
Yeah.
And it's not, what are we doing this for? We're doing this for views. We're doing this for likes. We're doing this for money. It's like, let's get back to the stuff that really made humans happy, which is like community, inspiration, and just normal, like simple things, like grounding yourself in grass, being around other human beings, not through a screen. I wish I was with you right now, dude. Like, like we will eventually, but like things like that, man. It's like, I think that we've gone in society. I'm curious your thoughts on this. I think we've gone in a weird direction, especially with technology. And I think of all the technology, like it allows me and you to speak, which is beautiful. Like otherwise, I never would have met you, bro. So there's so much benefit to technology, and also my business is technology. But if something isn't managed, like social media and these other aspects, our society can really be lost. And I think as I get older, I see the value in religion. I see the value in tradition. And I see the value in just values, having integrity, simple things, the power of your word. And these things are lost because of entertainment and these other things. And it's like, I almost feel this energy, dude. I'm curious your thoughts on that. Like the energy, like we're on the good side. You know what I mean? Like we stand for health, dude. We stand for strength and helping men and women in society. And then the other side is like, I just want more money, or I just want more fame and like beauty, and like all these things disintegrate and all these things don't matter. But what does matter,
Yeah. I mean, it definitely a little bit divergent. And I think it's like an important thing to talk about. But I think honestly, I try, because I want to avoid being like the Luddite, like every generation is always like, the new technology, like back in my day kind of thing. And I really just don't want to, I try to consciously avoid that, even as I am still a young person. And so I try to look at history and now as a lot of the same human folly, just with different avenues. And that's what's powerful about studying all of these great men of history, reading history, philosophy. Obviously, like Marcus Aurelius, the Stoics have been extremely popularized in the past few years. It's really profound, I think, because, assuming these are the written texts of those men, they're, 2000 years ago dealing with a lot of the same kind of fundamental human errors and issues and vices and grievances that we deal with today. They just had different avenues, but like the path for and the desire for these kind of hedonistic ideals, like chasing money, alcohol, drugs, kind of the like just imbibement of vice in general has always been a thing. And I think that is very much like a nature of reality thing. And we've kind of discussed like the heaven and hell as a mindset, and very similarly, I don't know if you've read Outwitting the Devil, but like the devil is that lower self in your mind. It's the voice in your head always calling you to do, drugs, Adderall, stay in the basement, be your lower self, abuse yourself constantly emotionally, say that you're unworthy. And that higher self will speak to you if you allow it to, and if you listen closely. So I think that, yes, we are seeing, I guess, at a cultural level or societal level, kind of an interesting inflection point. I definitely feel, I mean, I feel unbelievably grateful to be alive right now, doing exactly what I'm doing. Like, it feels like the best time to be alive. I mean, I have no say in the matter, but it really does feel, I feel incredibly grateful to be here now, because there is something about what's going on which feels like kind of a raising of consciousness, where the pendulum has swung far enough one way. And, especially because it's been kind of propagated and pushed with, traditional media now edging into social media. And because of that democratization, enough people are saying, like, you know what? No, like, I actually will not engage in that. Like, this upside down world, this fucking backwards speak, like, it is not aligned with my spirit. It's not aligned with what I can find in all of this ancient wisdom. Whatever book you want to pick up off the shelf from whatever culture, wherever on earth, it seems like there are kind of fundamental principles of, like you said, virtue, honor, dignity. Like, there's these kind of transcendent things that we know what's good and bad. Like, a child knows when it hurts somebody else. Like, children cry when they see people cry. Like, there are some of these things that are somehow innately human, and this goes into like a lot of stuff about like collective consciousness, and it's a very interesting conversation to have. But yeah, I do think that we're at this point, we're at this sort of this like inflection point, and we're seeing kind of a traditionalist movement maybe. And obviously, like, the aesthetics of kind of the content I put out there is very much aligned with that Greek and Roman aesthetic, and there is a lot of power in that. I think it was part of what informed my decision, like, to get the tattoos that I did, because I knew that while tattoos might be a trend, that we still admire those statues to this day, like that black and white aesthetic, the Greek masculinized physique, and like these gods and heroes and conquerors. Like, we still to this day, like, it's never not been cool. It's never not been something that we aspire towards. The pinnacle of the masculine physique hasn't changed until we speciate and change what we literally look like. That is always what's going to be like the most noble virtue of your body. It's always commanded importance. There's a reason that these 15-foot sculptures are erected and that we can admire them. It's like, that is an ideal physique. So yeah, I definitely agree that there is a bit of this traditionalist movement, and it can kind of get annoying because it bleeds into like the red pill kind of degenerate misogynist side. But I think there's a lot of value in it, and there's kind of these big characters that we're seeing as like these archetypal symbols. Jordan Peterson did a lot for a lot of people at the beginning around kind of COVID. He's like really blew up during that time. And then we more recently have seen kind of Andrew Tate, some of the benefits, some of the negatives for sure. But it speaks to what we're talking about, where like there are a tremendous amount of disaffected people, like especially young men. There's just a ton that like grew up and were like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Like, my dad isn't telling me because his dad didn't tell him. Like, he's pretty much a directionless drone. He did what he could with the information he was given. And all of these people, like you said, like you get to this place like 18, 19, like you just leave the nest, but immediately are told you just got to figure it out. Like, life is starting for you. Like, pick a job, pick a major. It's time to get clear on who you are. But nobody gave you the tools. They didn't tell you the questions to ask yourself. There's no rite of passage. We're just missing a lot of it. I talked a bit with Mike Lucchese on a previous podcast about the lack of rites of passage. And it's something that I really I will intentionally incorporate into the like rearing of my children, is like these moments when you go from adolescence to young adult to man. Like, there should be defining moments that clearly are externally shown to you, like you have now passed a threshold and overcome something. And I think that that's what a rite of passage ritual can and does across studied cultures and all these different groups. It's why military fraternities, like all of these kind of brotherhood-esque groups, have stuff like that. Some of it's kind of degenerate with like quote unquote hazing and everything like that. But putting someone through resistance to get into a group or feel like they're part of something, that is fundamental to the human being. Like there's a ton of data on organizations like businesses and such that the harder it is to get into, the more satisfied people are with their experience in the company, which is like a really interesting fun fact because you wouldn't necessarily think that that is true, but it's part of why like, and I had a really interesting glimpse into this in college because I was in a fraternity, eventually into leadership of that fraternity, one of the biggest ones on campus. And so it was like kind of this really weird distilled environment that was like a microcosm of society. And just like you were getting kind of the feminization, the broad weakening in society, you see it on the news, like we were under a lot of those same pressures from school, but also from people in the organization. Like there was a lot year after year, our kind of pledgeship process got quote unquote softer and softer and softer. It was like we were lowering the barrier to entry, and you could kind of see reflected in the level of engagement of the members. You know, like if you work harder, if you go through hell with guys by your side, you're going to be bonded to them in a very significant way. Anyway, I feel like I've strayed extremely far, so I'm going to digress here. But
Oh, that's
that
great.
is what I think very broadly about the situation with traditionalist values and what we're kind of seeing as this strange backswing in society.
Dude, I gotta say, I love talking to you and listening to you because I know me and you, we spoke on the phone, and you're like, I think laterally, and I experienced that. I think it's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing because you're touching upon a lot of points in this area in this topic. So I think it's beneficial to the discussion because there's so much to talk about here. There's so much to touch upon. You know, the rite of passage, masculinity, organizations, tradition. I think that I really would love to dive into the rite of passage and masculinity thing because I totally agree with you, bro. The rite of passage is lost, has been lost. And these men don't know what to do when they join the army because they need something. That's where I was at 21, 22 because there was nothing going on. So it's interesting that you brought out the fact that like that actually brings brothers closer and organizations closer, because it makes sense. Like you were a prior fraternity, you guys did things that only you did, and it's confidential, and you don't tell people. And people ask you, and you're like, you gotta join, bro. You gotta do this, and it doesn't really matter what it is, but that event brought you closer. And that's actually an aspect I am bringing to my clients and my community is like, that's something that's been lost. And masculinity is a whole deep topic here, dude. It's like, there's so much going on right now. And I'm trying to think of like where to start with it. But what I will say is like, we're doing this thing called the Spartan Challenge right now. And it's designed to keep everybody accountable. Spartans have this phalanx of shield interlocked with fucking shield. And one weak link, the whole phalanx shatters. Have you seen 300, dude?
Of course.
All right, perfect. So, yeah, dude. So he was talking about that one weak link and the whole phalanx shatters. So in terms of brotherhood, what we're doing is we're all keep each other accountable. But just imagine that, man, like just back in the day, like that's the kind of brotherhood that these men had is like just like, shield enemy running towards you, bro. And then to your left and to your right, you're interlocked. You feel the man's breath right beside you and the enemy is running and death is like right in front of you. To be honest, there's a part of me, and I wonder your thoughts on this, but there's a part of me that wants to experience that. I genuinely do. I don't want to die, but I want to do something like that. I want to expose myself to shit like that. I don't want to live this safe life. I want to fight an enemy and perhaps die. I mean, death is another topic we could talk about, but perhaps die fighting for what we believe in. And those men, and why I'm so passionate about that story, is like they knew they were going to die, bro. And they did it because they did it for their wives and their children and their village, and also just the sentiment. They didn't want to be bullied, and they wanted to stand for something, and they won, dude. The American Revolution is another one, man, and we're losing that. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's definitely very interesting, and I think that we have to be careful, or I want to provide nuance because I don't want this to get like mischaracterized as kind of like the fetishization of like the masculine, like
Sure.
we have to go to war, we have to fucking like
Right.
we gotta return to virtue, like just like primal lifestyle. Because I think there is a problem because there's no nuance there, and it's not acknowledging. I don't know if you've read David Data's Way of the Superior Man, but he talks about the masculine and feminine as energies, and within all of us there are both. And so,
Right.
Men typically are going to be more identified with the masculine. So like you're a 90-10 split or something, right? And then there's some people that are more 50-50 and some people that are more flipped as they feel and identify with those energies. And this isn't like I'm not trying to be PC. I'm just like literally characterizing how kind of the spiritual side, but it is interesting and seems to be a continual trend. Like it is a non-deniable aspect of the masculine to want to go out and overcome. It seeks out that resistance. And when you have a society that is literally completely devoid of it, like if your great heroic mission is showing up to a consulting firm and like moving spreadsheets around, that creates this fucking malaise and misery. And it's why you get these like overweight 35-year-old dudes who paint their face for some other guy to go to war on a fucking football field. Like it's embarrassing, and we're completely missing that aspect in people's normal life. So they have to seek it out in a lot of these potentially toxic. Obviously, watching sports and being a fan is more neutral, but sometimes it turns into like, oh, I'm going to be the biggest drinker amongst my guy friend groups. And then that becomes the form of competition. And I've seen that obviously within the fraternity environment, like guys that came from being high level competitive athletes in high school, maybe even started in college, maybe even continuing college, but like this is another avenue for that competition. And it does seem to be extremely transcendent. A really interesting story my dad told me about me and my brothers when we were young is that he said he was a very intentional, as almost like a experiment with us, that he never exposed us to like guns or weapons or whatever when we were very, very little. Like even on film, like we just didn't even understand the concept of it. But he said that even when we would go play in the yard, we would like fashion little sticks into like guns and weapons and kind of like play fight with each other. So it speaks to that, like those blood memories, as some people would say, or like that like kind of primal instinct of man to want to, I don't know, enter combat or face resistance. I think it's facing resistance is more of it's a better description, because I don't think that, like every man historically throughout time needed to go like find vengeance and blood and really conquer. But I do think the masculine spirit in its nature, it like is entering the world. It's penetrative. It's overcoming. It's goal oriented. It's not like the feminine, which would be obviously the inverse, where it's very receptive, very flowing, non-structured, nurturing, graceful. So again, a lot of things in duality, and I wanted to provide kind of that nuance, but I do completely agree that like the behaviors that we see of men that are maybe maladaptive traits, I think are a product of no mission to overcome. Like there is a complete gap of that. And I think a great way that is like healthy is martial arts. I was curious kind of when you were saying like you want to experience that. Have you done martial arts?
I haven't. No, it's a really good point though.
You live in Austin, bro. You have to start doing jiu-jitsu.
I know. Dude, I had, it's funny. I had a bad experience one time. I think that's why. I was
Interesting.
just talking to a friend about this today. I was at a jiu-jitsu place and the instructor went really hard on me, dude. And then ever since I haven't gone, but I should and I need to, because I will say, like, right now the fighting is like me versus me. But you're absolutely right. I think that the closest that we can get is martial arts.
Yeah. I think martial arts in the physical world, and then what's awesome is you've entered the arena, like you found yourself very naturally, and myself likewise, in the arena of entrepreneurship. Like it is the greatest sport on earth, and it has an unbelievably high, theoretically limitless ceiling. And I think that that is, I tend to find people, especially with the guys that I work with, entrepreneurially driven. Maybe they've already started a business, but they're all interested in this kind of space. And I think that kind of at a fundamental level, I have this like working thesis that like no one was meant to like work these, like there's going to be a carrying capacity in the world for these like data shifting, meaningless drone jobs. No human spirit, male or female, was meant to be caged like that and so linear. Like this world, it just doesn't allow you to be unlimited. And I think that that's why obviously you've entered this space where like it's eat what you kill. Like you have to wear a bunch of hats all day long. You're running around, you're doing all kinds of different stuff. You have to handle all different aspects of your business, from the sales to the marketing to the content generation to the actual implementation to the product, all of it. And like I think that that is a way that we can find meaning. I don't think that that's going to give us spiritual transcendence, but it does give you a reason to like wake up every single day and get after it. And that is nourishing. Like the delta, I don't know in your timeline when you stepped away from the full-time kind of thing and really started building your own thing, but I know that like that moment for me when I was able to quit my full-time job, and it was really like, okay, you got to wake up tomorrow and like make this thing happen. Like that is an energy that, even though it is stressful, even though it is hard, even though it is uncertain, like that might be the best word to describe it, is like the future is unknown, but it's amazing. Like it just is extremely, like I think that that is almost like a spiritual rite of passage in a sense.
For sure. It's really well said, dude, because it's a fight in and of itself. And we're fighting for our own missions and our own rights. And that's what entrepreneurship is. And it reminds me of our conversation that we had in terms of like everybody has that capability and that passion. Not everybody's going to do that, because it does take perhaps a specific person to do something like that, because like you said, it is stressful, bro. Like it is hard, but we wouldn't change it for the fucking world, because we love what we do and that passion that you have for your business. And I admire you, man, and your business, because what you're doing is like we're very aligned in our missions, and it's beautiful because you want to help people. And I think that the sincerity is really rare, because I think an entrepreneur can be like, I just want to make as much money as possible, which is totally fine. I think capitalism is great. So if you want to do that, that's fine. But that extra like magical spice on top of that, dude, you want to help people. And that's where I think the spirituality comes in a sense. It's like, I want to grow this as much as possible, but I also want to help people and have this mission. Is that going to make it as profitable as possible? Probably not. Like there's probably ways to make it more profitable, but we want to help people. And I think that is the most fulfilling thing. And I'm sure you relate to, like, dude, in your coaching business, the feeling that we get when we help somebody is like, it's second to none, man. Seeing somebody skinny and building muscle, seeing somebody overweight lose 100 pounds and he's living this amazing life. It's a weird feeling, but it's a deep feeling that can only be felt like you feel it in your heart. It's just like this peace. And I think it's an interesting component of the human experience. And like talking about like how life was created, like did God create this or whatever? But it's almost like somebody did. Like we're the creators, and it feels good to help people. And I believe, and we're getting into, I mean, this is kind of a tangent, but I believe that in terms of spirituality, everybody is the same in a way. Like me and you are the same. It's just consciousness in different bodies, different life, different experiences. Because Joe Rogan said this, he's like, the golden rule. We all know the golden rule of like how you treat other people is how you're treated. And like, why is that? It's because we're all connected in some way. This is what Rogan said. And it's so true. It's like, if you want to grow your business, help somebody else's.
Dude, and I want to jump in here because that is exactly the point that I found most profound where about the entrepreneurship conversation and, you know, the work that we do, you know, being somewhat transcendent because we're helping people and it having like that added layer of meaning. And it is exactly like the nature of all of the work that I talk about, that like money is not going to solve your problems. You were just going to arrive to them wealthier, like in a different car, but you still haven't, you can't outrun yourself. You can't outrun those traumas. You can't pay for purpose. You can't pay for meaning. You have to earn your way to it. You have to find your way to it. And with what you kind of said, and I want to kind of challenge the belief there, and I have to challenge it in myself too, as far as the making money aspect. I, on a very fundamental level, believe like the man who gives the most gets the most. Like if you actually help 1 million men across your career and whatever this business develops into, if you fundamentally transform the lives of 1 million men, I mean, they only have to pay you $1 each for you to be a millionaire, right? Like you're already there. But on top of that, think about it is imperceptible to think about the butterfly effect. Say one of those men, younger guy, comes out of college, he's younger you, right? Like he's on the path to literally being a deadbeat and maybe dead, but finds your content, hits you up, makes the change. Now he goes and cures cancer, or who knows, maybe he builds a really successful just money making business, some sort of social media marketing agency or real estate firm or whatever. And then he calls you back up and he says like, Spencer, come on my yacht. Like your life, you will be bestowed blessings in proportion to the value that you provide to the world. And that is like my working thesis. It's obviously maybe hard for the audience members to take in as like, okay, dude, well, you're not a millionaire yet. It's fine. I don't believe I've given the world necessarily millions of dollars of value yet, but I'm in the arena doing it, right? And I believe that, again, like memento mori, and we talked about kind of the value of death as a razor for how you make your decisions and why this work is so powerful and helping people is so powerful as opposed to some other money-making vehicle. Because if our time was cut short, which we don't know when it will be, I know that of the men that I have helped, those lives are changed. And because of that like butterfly effect that is imperceptible, those guys can go on and carry that torch, right? Like they could potentially be like, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to pick up the same exact shit that Zach was doing. Like take the name, you know, like the LLC will fucking, it's going to retire because I'm dead, right?
Yeah.
But maybe that's it. Or maybe it just means that they show up for their son as a great father figure. It allows me to go to sleep every single day and know that like, if that was my last day, it's already done. And I'm given the privilege day after day to continue to wake up. And I have to like pinch myself. Like part of when I was reading at the very end of the Four Agreements, he has you kind of like walk through these prayers of gratitude to the creator and God, whatever. Again, the words are not important here. It's whatever works for you, but you're kind of like expressing gratitude to the world. And yeah, man, every single day, like I start my day with the gratitude. It's part of the program that I give my guys. Like you start your day with mindfulness, with gratitudes, because if you acknowledge the abundance that's already in your life right when you wake up, just the fact that you woke up. I mean, you can pick any litany of things like the privilege to think, the ability to pick up the pen. Like people don't have all of these very simple things that we take for granted. And yeah, I mean, it fills me with like an unending amount of joy and gratitude to be in a space where I get to work with people on finding their thing, that their gift to give to the world, because that butterfly effect is insane. Like I know, and I actually have very limited worries about money, even though that my financial station right now is not like multimillionaire yet. Like because of the impact I'm having even at this very small scale, like I know I'm not going to have want for money. I don't know how it's going to arrive to me. It might be a blank check in the mail, but like I know that I will be taken care of. And if I continue to act in virtue and like truly only do good work and help people with positive intention, like harm will not come my way. And if it does, I will be prepared when it arrives. But like like money is an exchange of energy. And so, yeah, that would be like my challenge to you is like, I know there are times, again, this is almost me speaking to me, but like there are times where it's like, shit, dude, I don't know about the next like paycheck coming in. Like it's all hit or miss kind of with this entrepreneurship thing. But like, if you just show up for the clients you already have and make sure that you give them the best experience possible and really fundamentally believe in the work that you're doing, the money will find its way to you. Like that is, I believe that full stop. So yeah, I will digress again.
No, it's good stuff, bro. It's really good stuff. Have you ever read the book Reality Transurfing?
Not yet. It's been on my list forever. There's been a ton of people that recommend it.
You would really like it, bro. You would really like it. I'll gift you it for having me on, bro.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think everything you're saying is related to that. But I'm curious, dude, because it took me years to get to the point of like understanding that and like living in a life, because like I said, the anxiety was there from the start. So that fear was always like, if I had the same energy back then, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now, just because I didn't have any faith back then. But I built that up over time and built up within myself. I'm curious about you, dude. Like, did you always have this in you? Because I know, like we spoke about on the phone, we talked about doubt, and that's something I really had to overcome in my life, and I still deal with today. But I'm curious about your mentality, because it seems like you've had like a strong mentality around this, and doubt doesn't creep in as much. I'm curious if you can
Well,
touch upon that.
I definitely appreciate the compliment. I'm glad that I at least signal that. And yeah, it's hard to answer. I will try to, I'm going to fully acknowledge that the answer of this may sound any type of way, like self-aggrandizing, egotistical, whatever. Like take it as you will, audience member who is listening. But I, for better or for worse, I don't know that I've ever had a fundamental doubt. And I think I say this, we started this conversation before we started recording about talking about our parents, the stuff we wish they would have done, hadn't done, etc. And so that relationship with my dad, all these things, right? A million things I could put on a list I want different. But one thing that he did, and I describe it as like imbuing me with his superpowers, like from the time when I was super little, he always said like you can do anything you want. And like he toted these characters like Steve Jobs. And I, at a very early age, I don't know when I first heard it, but that clip where he's talking about you can poke the world and see something come out the other side, put a dent in the universe. Like once you realize it was made up by people no smarter than you can go out and change it. And that clip has been like burned into my psyche for so long. And what the words of my dad, like you can go do anything you want. I've never had doubt that I would do something great, but the doubt has always existed of what is it, right? Like what is going to be my direction? And I think that's where, especially the masculine mind, it's very organized, it's very analytical. And at some point you do need to know the X's and O's of like, what is it going to be? Like, for instance, when I was graduating from university, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but you can't check the entrepreneur box. You have to make something. So, for a year or for just under a year, I had to work a 9 to 5 job at a startup and everything. And so the X's and O's are what I think people can get wrapped into. And I talk about this on the week of my program where we go into purpose, but there's a clear delineation that I think is important for people to internalize, which is the difference between inner and outer purpose. So outer purpose is the what. Right now, you're a fitness trainer. Previously, you were a college student. Later in life, you'll be a father. Those are the outer purpose changing. And so your outer purpose does change. It has seasons. And those are the ER words we ascribe to ourselves, the teacher, lawyer, whatever. But inner purpose is you, the I am. What am I being the whole time, and you're always telling your story. Like you said, you feel like the beginning of your story had to happen for you to get here. We can always connect the dots in retrospect. So that being said, the inner purpose is always being actualized, and it's all redirection for that next thing. So as far as like handling doubt, I never doubted that it would work out. I've always had a tremendous amount of self-belief, but there have been moments for sure, and still are, where I don't know if X, Y, and Z thing is going to work out, but I know that I'm going to work out, if that makes sense. Like, you start a business for the first time. Is the business going to work out? I don't know, but I will figure it out. And there's never been that lack of personal faith. But I think I've always been this, like, I mean, I was told from the time I was very little, like, oh, you're an old soul, like you're very mature for your age. And so I felt in my mind like a decade ahead of my peers mentally. And that has caused me to have very few friends over my life and been like kind of a black sheep. And like, I've just always been in my head and thinking deeply about things. And I never had these kind of immature phases like in middle school focused on girls, or like in college, like really just like fucking around and drinking. I, of course, engaged in some of those activities. I'm no saint. I'm not trying to moralize, but I've always kind of had that longer term vision and been like ahead of the curve. It's so I get the feedback all the time, like, oh, you're only 23, you're only 22, you're only 24. Like, I've always had that my entire life, even when I was 12, 11, 10. So that aspect, I guess, is part of maybe why I feel like I'm special, or like is part of my gift to give, or, you know, within the work that I do, the Achilles advantage. It's part of my thing. Like, that is whatever the sauce I was given when I was born, is maybe just enough delusional self-belief to make really special stuff happen. So we'll see what it pans out into. We'll see what the history books say, but that's at least where I am now.
Beautiful, bro. It's beautiful, man. Like you have this, it sounds like, whether or not, I mean, maybe even your father doing that wasn't it. It's interesting. Like, maybe you always had that, you know, but I'm sure, you know what I mean? So I'm sure it was a factor. But the faith that you have with yourself, I think, is, because that's key, bro. Right? Because as entrepreneurs, it's up to us to do our mission. And if there's no other validation that we need, like our mother, father, friends, clients, if they tell, oh, you're great, or, oh, you're ripped, you have an amazing physique, or you're going to do great things. If we don't believe that about ourselves, we're screwed. So I think you're very ahead of the game, dude, that you have that innate within you. And that's not not necessarily a forefront problem that you have to deal with, because it's like, then you can focus tremendously on your craft and what you're doing. And I think it also goes to show, you know, your decisions. Like, dude, going to Bali, let's go. That's sick. And you're trusting yourself, you're trusting life. And that's what reality, that's why I'm gonna send you that book too, because that's what reality transurfing is like, it's called the rustle of the morning stars, which can only be heard when the mind is off and you're in meditation. But it's like that whisper or that wind of like, go to Bali, find your wife, dude. You know, just go.
Interesting. Yeah, no, and I for anyone listening, like, I don't want it to also seem that like, I just don't want it to be like a write-off where, you know, you may be in a position, you meaning the person I'm speaking to now, the audience member, like, if you don't have your thing, you don't have your direction, you're not building the Vitruvian, you're not building Freedom Fitness, and you're like, well, that's nice for you guys to say, like, I don't have that. I will also say that, like, all of this shit was earned. Like, it started out as an insecure kid. Like, all of the ability I have to be proud of myself, like, it's years of showing up for myself, meal prepping and getting made fun of for like eating a different way, or, you know, living in a fraternity house for 4.5 years, and like, you're still going to bed at 10 p.m. because like I have 5 a.m. lacrosse practice, and like I'm stretching before bed. Like, come out and drink with us, bro. Like, what do you mean? It's just one night. Like, loosen up a little bit. Like, it's all the shit that nobody wants to do. And like, even my business, like the success that I've had, like, the stuff that I've shown up and done every single day for 365 days, like that's what separates it. And so there's no kind of like transcendent magic ingredient that anyone out there should look for. It's just about showing up one day at a time for yourself and whatever that looks like for you. Like if you're still in college, how can you be the most effective version of yourself every single day? I promise you that person trains. So like whether you reach out to Spencer, whether you reach out to me, like find your ass in the gym. Every college is a really nice training center. Like definitely start. And that's why the physical can be a great entry point, because you don't know what your life direction is, but you know you need to get in really good shape. So start there. Like if you, I think that is like a really great principle, honestly. Like if you have a complete lack of direction, or you feel kind of this like malaise of being lost and purposelessness, you're going to find purpose across that 1 year, 2 year mission to get in like really excellent shape. And what's awesome about training is it's an infinite game. You're not supposed to get in, you're not trying to get to shape. You're trying to stay in shape for the rest of your life. So yeah, I would say like, whatever gifts I was given or Spencer was given, you also have those gifts. And you kind of alluded to it, but we talked on that call. Like I believe every single person can access and should access greatness within themselves. But like you said, the unfortunate reality, most won't. I believe that the audience that comes to this kind of thing from your group, from your audience, from my audience, and whoever in the future finds their way back, they're going down the Vitruvian rabbit hole. Like you can be great. I fundamentally believe I will die on that sword. Every single person, because I'm not fucking special. Like I am not special. Some advantages over other people, some disadvantages for sure. It just comes down to different decisions made over time that amalgamate into who I am here. Like it's maybe hard to look at somebody who like runs a podcast and is closing in on 50 episodes, or has a fitness business and is already jacked. But nobody comes out of the womb with a fully fledged business, with a fully developed physique, with transcendent inner peace and self-love. It's all earned. So I don't know, start the good work one piece at a time.
Dude, I'm glad you brought that up. Because that's the glory of life, dude, is being able to do that, being able, no matter who you are, to improve and listen to things like this, listen to men like us, because that aspect of the journey, the hero's journey, is such a privilege to be able to be on, because that's what life is. It's not normally, I'm sure like Einstein and other people, but even they had to work, right? There's talent and there's hard work. So even they had to work, and they suffered immensely because they're talent in a lot of ways. But I think, what really pops up for me, dude, is like that sacrifice, because that's what you were talking about, right? Like sacrificing the night out in your fraternity, sacrificing nights when you're building your business, sacrificing, when you're a kid, focused on other stuff. These are all sacrifices. And I relate to you immensely, because that's what it really comes down to. And I was just talking about this with a client. We're doing a meditation, and there's the higher self and lower self. And that lower self, it's super clear that lower self just partook in the hedonistic activities every single day. He or she watched porn, did these different things, junk food, didn't work out, didn't go after what they wanted to do. And at the end of the day, they find themselves at 60, 70, 80 and being like, fuck, man, I should have done this. And, there's two forms of that motivation. There's two forms of pain. There's the pain that makes you and the pain that breaks you. And some people get broken down by their pain. And a lot of that pain is that regret, and I'm sure that drives you as well, as like thinking about that possibility, which is always a possibility of like 80 years and being like, dude, I lost my window of opportunity, man. There was hundreds of thousands and millions of men who could have used this course and this program, and they didn't get it because of something, whether it's drinking or just not doing the work. And it's like, that pain of not getting that song out that we both have, I think is really that's what is really painful. And for everybody listening, it's funny. This is like not my 10th podcast, so sometimes I forget. Like it's like conversation between two people, but the people listening, yeah, like dude, there's a song within everybody, and we talked about this. Find that song and sacrifice the easy road, sacrifice the comfortability, sacrifice, going to bed early, or going to bed late, or going out and doing these different things, and start asking yourself those questions. But the training aspect, I totally agree with, man. That is the foundation, because no matter what they do, like you said, they can be ripped. And whether it's tech or anything physical, or in general, you being your healthiest self, you're going to discover what that is. And a lot of those qualities come up during weightlifting, man, and training. It's like discipline, caring for yourself. And I think there's a spiritual component to it, where it's like you're taking care of yourself and you're eating well, you're loving yourself, then you're able to really understand what you're trying to do in the world, whether that's drawing or speaking or leading or being an employee, whatever it is, being a 9 to 5 or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, that only comes up when you're in that state, when you're consistently. Because if you're acting from fear of like, I'm doing this because of other people, or to make my parents proud, or to make society proud, or because I am nervous about being an actor or whatever it is, then you're not going to find it. So I think training self-love is important.
I completely agree. I mean, it's like building this relationship. And what's funny is like people always know what to do, because if you walked up to like first consultation with a client, they're 100 pounds overweight, you just ask them the question like, okay, so you have a friend 100 pounds overweight, what do you tell them to do? And they're like, well, like I'd probably get them to eat out a lot less, like probably cut out alcohol, definitely make sure they're getting in bed on time, drink their water, start training every 3 times a week at least, whatever. It's like interesting, like. And so that's why, like you're talking about that self-love, it's a relationship with self, and it's showing up and saying like, I care about you enough, me, to eat this that's going to make me feel better, or give me energy in the gym, or allow me to lose weight. I'm going to go train because that's going to invigorate me. It's going to allow me to break down what I need to build up what I need to. I'm going to go on a walk. I'm going to get sun. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z thing. And it really is that self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think getting clarity on your purpose, it's super underrated to be in like really, really good physical condition, because it has all of those cognitive benefits. Like even on a very animal level, I know we've touched on the spiritual a lot, but like if you're listening and you're not into the woo-woo, that's fine. Maybe there is absolutely nothing going on, but like even at a cognitive level, that fog from your body trying to process like toxic goy slop, like seed oil nonsense, like your body, it's actually, and like this is all proven shit, like it is harder for you to think clearly. You are going to have cognitive dysfunction when your body is processing toxins. So cleaning up the diet, exercising, increasing the function of your heart and organs, all of that at minimum will make you just literally be able to think more clearly, be able to be more still, sleep better. And then the better sleep makes you more healthy. And it's just this like flywheel that really starts going. And it's super hard at the beginning. And I think you and I are so far down the line that we can have the maybe bias or tendency to be like, yeah, just do all these things. Like, here's the checklist, go fucking do it. Like, it's hard to get the first thing going, but at the start of any journey, of course, that snowball is very small, but at some point it's so big that you don't even have to put your hands on it and it's already rolling down the hill. So yeah, I don't know. I imagine most people listening to this are probably in decent shape, but this can be added motivation to like get your shit in gear and really lock in, because there is extreme transcendence in it, and it's kind of a non-negotiable pillar if you want to be great. And then yeah, there's a ton of different motivational factors that you can apply to yourself, like the veteran frame, like what is the what advice does the 80-year-old, 90-year-old version of you tell you at 20 whatever to do? It's like, well, dude, redline in the gym. Like, you have unlimited HP points. Like, go fucking hard, train hard, like become the best athlete you can, because I at 90 can't do that anymore. And if you don't, I at 90 is in a wheelchair and can't pick up our grandkids. So that could be a great thing. It could be thinking about showing up for loved ones across your life. It could be achieving something you've always wanted to do, traveling somewhere. Like, health, your body is the vehicle you're going to experience the whole life experience through, for better or for worse. So why would you not want to turn it into a fucking machine? Like, I don't know. It's just like it's tough for me to conceptualize, but I know that,
Well,
everybody starts somewhere.
I would say, I think, because I've been there, I think like what it is like that stickiness of the addictions, and and I say addiction fairly likely, but that kind of is what it is in terms of comfort and also in terms of junk food. Because if this was easy, everybody would be ripped. And I think obviously people back in Sparta were, obviously healthier across the board in comparison to America. And it's like, why is that? It's because, the access to junk food, the sedentary lifestyle, etc. And it's good. Like, dude, it's comfortable ordering DoorDash, and just watching Netflix. Like, that's kind of nice, but it doesn't get you there. And it just like any drug, it feels good in the moment, but it's a credit card and you got to pay for it later. And that's what it is. And I think once people understand that, and they understand that's the cycle of success and going to the gym and training and how that helps them in other regards, they're going to be addicted to it or in love with it. So the investment of muscle, bro, the investment of muscle is so important, especially as people get older, is like, that's key. Because all you need to do is really invest 2-3 years of your life, and then you maintain. So building the body of your dreams, you just have to focus for a short amount of time. And then once you have this, all those health benefits come, and you don't have to work so hard in the gym, and you just maintain it. So it's an investment of time, sacrifice. But once you have that, that's why people respect it, right? Is because you can't buy that, which is rare now.
Dude, it's very interesting. I was on a call today, literally like on a sales call, like for a prospective client, and he ended up joining, and I was very exciting. I'm also excited. Shout out Jacob. I'm excited to start working with him. But it was something that we were going back and forth, and he was like asking about pricing, which I think is fair for anyone purchasing anything, and he was like, why is it X price? And I posited a question. I was like, what would you pay for a pill that would give you the life of your dreams, or you become the person of your dreams, right? It's like a priceless, like it's imperceptible. So especially when you're young, why not invest whatever it is? It's a $60 e-course training. It's a $5,000 mastermind. It's a trip to Bali. It's whatever the thing is for you. Why not invest in that as a down payment on your future self? It can only pan out at a minimum as some sort of experience. Like, worst case scenario, you get scammed and you lost a couple grand on whatever it is online, or you throw money at the market and it disappears. That's a lesson learned, right? Like, that is a piece of information that you can use for your future self. So when you're playing with more money, you don't lose it. But with these kind of immaterial things where you're learning about yourself, you're investing in your growth, you're training, like you said, it's down payments for that future self. It's a short-term investment for long-term payoff.
For sure, man. For sure. And it takes different people to do that, right? Like, a person who trusts themselves and trusts the service enough to invest in themselves. Because otherwise, like, if they live in fear, they're not going to invest. So somebody like Jacob, shout out Jacob, is doing amazing things, bro. Because that's the type of person that's going to change his life by doing something like this. The people that like, maybe I'll do it myself, and they don't do it, that energy isn't conducive.
Like, what do you think allowed you at 25 to like flip the switch, like break that hypnotic cycle of addiction and like that lower self, like because it is so comfortable and because it was so learned. I mean, like you said, it was almost a decade of, I mean, we're talking about shit that's like bigger than eating habits, right? Like this was substance abuse, this was behavioral. I mean, there was like not only behavioral addiction, but actual chemical addiction. Like what do you think allowed you to actually just kind of snap, especially going cold turkey without like an external program?
Dude, it's a really good question, man. I think the biggest thing is just the anger at that point, like at rock bottom. And that's why people always talk about rock bottom. You experience that and you're like, what am I doing? You have some sort of moments or series of moments of self-reflection. And you're like, what am I doing with my life? I know deep inside that I'm capable of so much more than what's happening. So for me, in the mom's basement, drinking Adderall, playing video games, just down and out, man, like the worst, feeling terrible. I started feeling a tremendous amount of anger. And I think that anger, especially for men, is an incredibly transformative emotion. And it could be very destructive. We see that, right? We see that all the time. But it can also be a flint. I don't know if that's the right word, but a flint that ignites something, right? And that could be your entire life, or that could be the fire that we're talking about. So I got super angry. I'm like, I need to make a change, man. Like this enough. And I just made a decision from my heart, a conviction. I'm like, I'm done drinking. But keep in mind, like I relapsed a couple times, not before COVID. COVID was like, I quit. But a year before that, I tried stopping drinking. But when COVID occurred around 25, that's when it was just enough. I'm like, I am wise enough to understand what this is doing. And it's just holding me back. That's all it is. And some people need to take mushrooms or other things to understand that. You know what I mean? And mushrooms helps too. Like it really does. Because it gives you a perspective. It's like you're understanding, wait, okay, this substance is preventing me from getting to this point spiritually. You need to cut this out, or you need to cut out the junk food, or cut out the people that are holding you back, or cut out certain habits that yourself are holding you back. But at the end of the day, for me, man, it was anger. And that was a catalyst that propelled everything. And it was also knowing what I can be and knowing who I want to help and knowing what I can do. And also this mission, like just developing the love for fitness, man, and wanting to help as many people as possible with it. Like there's a tremendous, for better or for worse, a song that needs to get out and helping people with it. So, it's not even about me anymore. So at this point, it's like if I decide to drink, which I never will, because I know it's never worth it. If I decide to drink, I know I would lose a lot, but not just for me, but for people, for the community, for Freedom Fitness, and for the world. And that's a highly selfish thing to do just for a night out and just for a temporary pleasure. So that's what came up for me.
Man, yeah, no, that's powerful. And it's extremely impressive because I'm grateful to say and that I've never dealt with that type of addiction. I've struggled with my litany of issues and I'm not perfect, but I'm always greatly impressed with people who can overcome those kind of demons because they are extremely powerful. And I've also seen a lot of people that weren't able to break it. And it's super tragic. And I mean, it's definitely like a hat tip to you for being able to like alchemize that anger. And yeah, I mean, like we're all grateful, like everyone listening and everyone you're going to get to work with now and into the future, that you stuck up for yourself, like made that switch, because it's all part of that transcendent story. And I think that like what's cool about this podcast is it's an example, but there will be many in the future as you continue to make content. Like sharing that story, making people feel seen and heard when they're at or near their rock bottom, right? Like however this piece of data and information finds them, they find their way to this podcast. Maybe it's a short clip from it, maybe it's whatever, but like it's those pieces, right? Like Greg Plitt was that for you. Greg O'Gallagher was that for you. Like somebody choosing to put themselves in the arena and just put a little bit of themselves out there. Like Greg Plitt, insane motivational clip, like such an amazing character. So sad that he's not with us anymore, but just an amazing, like, to think about that ripple effect. It goes back again to the butterfly effect of like what you and I are doing, you know, and how powerful it already is, even at this kind of incubation early stage for both of our journeys, like stepping out into the public sphere, and what it could and will look like in the future is honestly remarkable. But I think we could go on ad nauseum. I do want to get to the closer questions that I always ask my guests. So the first of the three is, if you could go back to a younger version of yourself and tell him one thing, what would that be?
That it's all going to be okay, man.
Hmm.
That's what I would say, because that's a scared kid who had to kind of fend for himself in a lot of ways. But that's motivation as well, bro. Is like, because I think I tell my clients this is like, think about your highest self and think about your old bit older self. But also becoming the man that your younger self will look up to.
Hmm.
And I forgot where I heard this, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like the child sees Zach and it's like, oh shit, like, you're doing this amazing course and this program for men. Wow, that's incredible. And like, that's motivation for me, is being a role model for my inner child. If that makes sense.
That's amazing, man. I had a moment a while back where I was kind of reflecting on, yeah, that like younger version of me that like felt like he had a lot of potential, maybe unactualized, and just also for sure struggled with feeling seen or loved. And yeah, it's fun to think about what that kid, the eyes that that kid would look at, you know, current me, you know, like it's a pretty powerful exercise, and that's awesome. So the second question is, as you know and can tell, I'm quite the words and quote person, but what is one quote that has always stuck with you or that you try to live by?
That's a great question that I honestly wish I had like on deck, dude. Like, I think that,
Yeah, everybody's like they want to think of like a cool answer, right? Like I
yeah.
like
So
that there's no preparedness. Like I think whatever comes to you, that will be like the most transcendent quote. Because if it was one that was like on the wall that you could read, it might not be as true.
yeah, I think I have to go with Greg Plitt, dude. Like,
Yes.
just the quotes that he had, bro, that just came off the noggin. Like, he is, his legacy is incredible. Um, I would say what I said before, with there's two types of pain: the pain that can make you, or the pain that could break you. Because I think that really discusses, what we spoke about today, in terms of like, you are the creator of your own life. And you can use these instances of alcoholism and drug abuse, and it could break you, which, like you said, we see so many unfortunate souls who suffer that. Or they can use it to build the body of their fucking dreams, or the business of their dreams, and the life of their dreams. It's up to the individual.
I love it. And then
What about
finally,
you?
oh, we're gonna flip it. We're gonna flip it.
Yeah, dude, I'm curious your thoughts, dude.
So I'm extremely fascinated and humbled to like get the opportunity to like read the words of others. But one that has been my answer recently, and it happened during a reread of David Data's Way of the Superior Man. I'm gonna have to pull it up. Here it is. I need to commit this to memory because I've referenced it on so many podcasts now. But you were born as a sacrifice, and you can either participate in the sacrifice, dissolving into the giving of your gift, or you can resist it, which is your suffering.
Ooh, wow, dude. Can you say that one more time?
Yes, absolutely. You were born as a sacrifice. You can either participate in the sacrifice, dissolving into the giving of your gift, or you can resist it, which is your suffering.
That's beautiful, dude. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and it talks exactly about what we're talking about, that younger version of you knew you were meant for more. I think everyone knows they are to some degree. And I think that the degree to which you suffer is the degree to which you don't chase your potential. And so, with all of that being said, what do you believe is your unique gift to give the world?
Showing people the power of fitness to change their entire lives.
I love it. Well, brother, it's been excellent. Shout out to anyone that's made it this far. I don't know what it'll end up getting cut to, but it's like 150 on the recording right now. So grateful for everyone that stuck it out. Grateful for you sharing your story with me, being vulnerable with me. Certainly excited about the future of, our friendship and being connected with you into the future. But I want to let you have the floor a little bit. Where can people find you? What are you working on? And what are you most excited about?
Well, first of all, man, thank you for having me. And likewise, I'm really excited for this relationship, dude. I think we talk about a lot of amazing things and we're on the growth trajectory. So I can't wait to see that. People can find me. You can email me, freedomfitness.com, at gmail.com. It's FRIEDOM at Gmail. You can find me on Instagram, which is at Spencer Dillon, SPENCER DYLAN. Yeah, the Instagram is the main thing. And what I'm most excited about is this community that we're building. It's an incredible brotherhood of men who are dedicated to their fitness. We're doing something right now, which is the Spartan Challenge. All accountability. You're hitting your training, your nutrition, and your mindset, and we're all keeping each other accountable. So this is just the start of the movement. I'm so excited to see how it grows in members and just impact in the coming years. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So if you want to be a part of it, the best way you can find me is Instagram, Spencer Dillon.
Absolutely, brother. I'll have all your stuff linked. Like I said, I appreciate your time. And for those listening that are interested in more of these podcasts and what I'm putting out, you obviously found us on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. You can continue to listen on those platforms. You can follow myself at ZDSTHENKEN on Instagram and Twitter. All of my stuff is there. And then if you're interested in joining the Discord community I have of men focused on becoming the best version of themselves in all arenas of self-mastery, it's completely free to join. Just go to thevitruvian.co and you can apply to enter there. And other than that, thank you for spending your time and attention, your most valuable resources with myself and Spencer today. Memento Mori, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Vitruvian podcast.
And if he fails, at least fails while daring greater, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat.